Chapter 2 of our text deals with mediated interpersonal communication. If you think about it, for most of history, face-to-face communication and interaction was the foundation of interpersonal relationships. The people that you lived close to in terms of space defined and determined your relationships. The term is proximity, and proximity is still a powerful predictor of how we form relationships and how we maintain them. We found that technology can overcome some of those spatial limitations that earlier generations could only have dreamed about. Think about how many times you've texted, posted, messaged during the past few days. These are all forms of mediated communication. That is, any type of communication occurring via a technological channel. Now, social media are a subset within this category. Websites and applications that enable us as users to network and share content. So as we look at this chapter, we will look at how mediated communication operates in our relationships, and then we'll discuss ways to use mediated channels to best accomplish our personal and relational goals. Mediated communication. What are the pros and what are the cons? Does it alienate or does it connect? So one of the most important debates regarding mediated interpersonal communication is whether it is a source of alienation or a source of connection. Does it create social distance or does it bring people together? And of course, there's evidence for both sides of the argument. Some of the alienating factors include a variety of things, and we'll get into a list of that. So loneliness is one of today's greatest health threats. A comprehensive review show that people lacking social connections are at a 29% higher risk for premature mortality. Excessive media use and loneliness often go hand in hand. So, technology is most alienating when it's used as a substitute for face-to-face communication. So there is a correlation, there is a relationship between loneliness and what social scientists call a preference for online social interaction. There's some people who rely on online interaction because they don't have to respond in real time or manage the complexities of sending and interpreting non-verbal cues. Some people would rather communicate with friends online rather than in person, and of course, this can be concerning. Frequent users of social media at times have been caught in a vicious cycle of alienation. So a preference for online interaction leads to withdrawal from meaningful offline interaction, which leaves them even more isolated. So it becomes a spiral that creates problems in relationships. It's hard to say whether loneliness leads to a preference for online social interaction or online social interaction makes people more lonely. It's hard to say which way it works. Some of the connecting factors, and we will get to these, in most cases, mediated communication isn't so much a replacement for face-to-face interaction as a supplement of face-to-face interaction. If you think about it, mediated communication helps you stay connected, in touch with friends and family, many of whom would be outside your social orbit if it weren't for social media. Texting gives us all an increased sense of connection with family members. Social networking allows us to connect with friends, high school mates that we haven't seen and spoken to in years. We can try and get in touch with people that we've lost touch with through online communication. So besides helping maintain existing relationships, mediated communication makes it easier for us to create new ones. And this is especially true for people who are somewhat shy or introverted, who find online communication less intimidating. Mediated communication has revolutionized the whole dating scene. So online dating services expand your pool of potential mates, significant others, beyond your offline network, and they help you identify prospective partners with similar backgrounds and interests. So is it superficial or meaningful? Are relationships that are created online through social media, are they necessarily superficial? They can be. Social scientists have argued that it's possible to sustain only about 150 relationships at a time. If you're lucky, they say, you have an inner circle of about 5 core people and an additional layer of 10 to 15 close friends and family members. Beyond this circle lies a larger group of roughly 35 reasonably strong contacts. That leaves about 100 people to round out your group of meaningful connections. You and I certainly don't have the time or the energy to actively sustain relationships with that many people. So, regardless of how many online friends you have, we only actively maintain relationships with the same number of people, that is 15 individuals. You may have a large number of acquaintances online, but it's probably a stretch to consider them your close friends. So, sometimes some research seems to indicate that seeking an unrealistically large number of social media friends might be an indication of low self-esteem or compensation for low self-esteem. Over-reliance on brief mediated messages can lead to superficial connections, and sometimes even among true friends. So, is mediated communication meaningful? Well, online connections can have immense value. Communication technologies provide meaningful ways for us as like-minded individuals to connect. Using discussion boards, blogs, online forums, these all create a virtual sense of community among strangers. What may begin as a series of brief online interchanges with strangers can sometimes lead to valuable friendships. Mediated communication can also strengthen your existing relationships by supplementing face-to-face interaction. So the theory of media multiplexity asserts that people enhance their close relationships by using a greater number of channels. So here it is. The stronger the bond, the more mediated channels you're likely to use in a relationship, Even a relatively superficial communication can enhance important relationships. So communicating via text messaging can help work colleagues form more personal relationships. It can help maintain long-distance romances. Researchers use the term weak ties to describe less personal relationships typified by infrequent communication. So the term weak sounds somewhat negative, yet these weak ties can offer strong rewards. Networking with contacts beyond your inner circle can be useful, and that is a weak tie. One columnist, Riley, notes that social networking has changed social life by keeping weak connections on life support forever. So, social media allows you and me to stay in touch with people who would otherwise seem distant relatives or long-lost friends. Is it unhealthy or healthy? Well, there's some of both. Unhealthy aspects. Social scientists use the term addiction to describe problematic use of smartphones. One study found that cell phone addiction increases anxiety, and leads to greater difficulty with face-to-face interaction. Smartphones can keep you up late at night checking your device because you fear missing out, you're experiencing FOMO. People who take time off from social media report better moods, more positive moods, less anxiety, and of course, increased face-to-face interaction. 32% of teenage girls in a study revealed that when they felt bad about their bodies, Instagram made them feel worse. There were also links between social media use and both eating disorders and suicidal thoughts. Some critics have challenged the cause and effect relationship between mediated communication and lack of well-being. One study followed social media users for years and found that for adolescent girls, depression leads to social media use rather than vice versa. This implies that obsessive technology use might be a symptom rather than a cause of mental health issues. Other health hazards associated with mediated communication are, of course, cyberstalking and harassing, and this can take many forms. A slew of unwanted texts and emails, messages with poems and song lyrics suggesting greater intimacy than exists, lewd photos and threatening posts, spreading rumors and falsehoods. And of course, these kinds of behaviors have harmful consequences for victims. And these consequences include anxiety, panic attacks, depression, suicidal thoughts. Some of the healthy aspects include the opportunity to develop and maintain social connectedness. So, some researchers state that many of the fears surrounding social media are overstated. Virtual communities can be an important source of social support and feedback on issues ranging from illness, suicide prevention, substance abuse, and this is especially important in dealing with potentially stigmatizing or isolating issues. The bottom line. So what's the takeaway? Does mediated communication bring people together or isolate them? Does it foster meaningful relationships or make them more superficial? Does it enhance or reduce mental health? One psychologist offers this observation. For some of us, social media will be a lifeline, connecting us to friends, family, or strangers in times of need. For others, it will be a landmine, exposing us to triggering content or harassment. For most of us, it will be both, depending on when and how we use it. So the following are suggestions for keeping mediated communication as more lifeline than landmine. Number one, moderation. As with almost everything in life, balance is vital to the healthy use of social media. Overusing social media tends to damage mental health and face-to-face relationships. On the other hand, underusing social media can negatively affect relationships. Active versus passive use. The way you and I use mediated channels can shape whether the outcomes are either beneficial or superficial or harmful. Passive consumers of social media suffer more than active ones. So if you perpetually scroll through others' content without interacting or creating your own, this can become very unhealthy. By contrast, social media users who create their own content generally feel far more connected and better about themselves. Known versus unknown communicators. Another difference lies in the type of people with whom users communicate. Social media users who interact with those they know offline fare better on depression measures than those who follow mainly strangers. All right, that's the end of the first part.